And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Copyright 2.0 show, episode number 342. My name is Jonathan Bailey from the site Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. And joining me, as usual, though now, unfortunately, for the last time, it is Patrick O'Keefe, the iFroggy Network at iFroggy.com. Patrick, how have you been?
I've been good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a busy week, but hopefully getting more fruitful. Though I think, this has been the day that I have been loathing for some time, saying goodbye to you on the podcast. I knew this day was going to be hard for some time, but, so
Yeah,
I got to
yeah.
be honest.
We might be dealing with a delay, so hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, I mean it's tough to say goodbye to a project you've been a part of for such a long time. Now we're on almost 6 years, and
Yeah.
I think I've counted 259 episodes. This one will make. I actually, I download all these shows we do, so I have a folder on my hard drive, and we've done 8.84 gigabytes of finished podcasts. So this will push us over 9 gigabytes of podcasts, and that's a lot of data. But everything has to come to an end eventually, and I guess that's today for us doing the podcast together.
Yeah, and it's a sad day to be sure. But the good news is, for those of you listening along at home and maybe joining us in the chat or elsewhere, we are doing a little bit of something special. We didn't want to go too crazy with doing special stuff, but we are going to be doing, at the end of the show today, we're going to do our usual 7 stories, but at the end of the show, we're going to do a recap of the 7 biggest stories we've covered over the past 6 years. We've made it the tradition in recent years to do 7 stories, as I found out when I went through our archives. We weren't always so smart with our show notes, were we?
Who's
But
we?
who's we?
I didn't make the show notes.
That's true.
I didn't do anything except.
But it was your idea to go down to 7, and we used to do 13 actually.
Was it my idea to go down to 7?
Yes, I think it was. I believe it was your idea.
I don't remember that. Okay, cool.
I think it was you who said it's kind of difficult to get through 13 stories in an hour. I agreed. We culled it down to 7, and that's where we've been ever since.
Okay, yeah, I think I wanted 2 stories, so we could talk about more interesting things for half the show, and not have to talk about copyright.
Yeah, like we've been doing for the past 100-odd episodes or so. Yeah. It's kind of been the format of the show. Like the first 15, 20 minutes or so, we fill it with whatever's on our mind or brain. It could be anything. It could be news. It could be personal stuff. And then from there, transition into copyright news, where we fumble our way through 7 stories of copyright-related stuff. And it's been quite the run. Like you said, you started the show. Well, let's do the whole history of the Copyright 2.0 show real fast.
Okay.
Let's go back to the beginning.
You gotta fill in episode 1 to 83.
Yeah, I've got to fill in episode. Well, actually, I can't fill in 5 through 83. That's part of the problem. The show actually was originally Chris Matthieu. Chris Matthieu, for those who don't know him, that's Matthew with the Cajun spelling, Mattieu. Is now a very, very successful entrepreneur doing all kinds of wonderful things. Launched a whole bunch of great projects. Too much to actually go over in this short period of time, but you can actually find him at Twitter, Chris Matthieu, if you are so inclined. But yeah, wonderful guy. Founded the Copyright 2.0 show as a means at that time of promoting his site Numly, which was NUMLY.com. I have no idea if Numly is even still around. I'm going to check that out. Well, I should have looked that up before I got on the show, but I didn't know. But he was doing it as a means to promote Numly, and he did the first 5 episodes of the show pretty much by himself. And Numly is still around, by the way, so if you want to check out the origins of the Copyright 2.0 show, Numly.com is the place to go. But he did the first 5 episodes by himself, and then at episode, the 5th episode rather, he came to me and said, "Hey, this is hard. Would you like to co-host this with me?" And so we joined forces, and for nearly 80 episodes, the 2 of us did it together, Chris Matthieu and I, week after week. He handled the recording, the editing, and all the hard stuff, basically. And then he decided he wanted to transition out, and he gave me...
He didn't last as many episodes as I did.
No, not nearly. He only lasted about... basically, you have done 2.5 more times episodes than he has.
Right.
The original founder of the Copyright 2.0 show was around for 84 episodes. You were around for 200 and some change. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, some would say the first 84 are the hardest. I think I read that somewhere on a bathroom wall.
The first 84 are the hardest. Yeah, I don't know if that number has any significance, but yeah. So he wanted out. He basically was needed to spend more time with his family. He was spending a lot of time on the show. Wanted time with his family. I approached you about it, and episode 84 was your first one. And I've actually got the show notes from episode 84 right here. In front of me.
Yeah, let's hear them. What do we talk about?
Well, we were talking about MTV and MySpace were joining forces so that they could do like a content ID thing and license illegally uploaded videos.
That proved meaningful. Okay, next.
Yeah, that did. And then you had two stories about the MPAA. One was about an MPAA and IFPI anti-piracy enforcer being shot dead, but the other was about MPAA lobbying and then new President Obama.
Those sound like you could just pull those out of the headlines right now.
Yeah, almost.
MPAA lobbying Obama and something failed.
Yeah. And then there was the ISPs disconnecting customers with open Wi-Fi. An ISP disconnecting customers with open Wi-Fi.
That's fresh out of the headlines still, I think.
Could be today.
Yeah.
And here's one that definitely could be out of the headlines today. IFPI abandons 3 strikes model for Danish file sharers.
Okay, yeah.
3 strikes talk. And
I mean, it makes you question whether or not it's worth it to do the show. I think. I mean, this is 6 years ago.
Episode 84, and
6 years ago we were young men. Now look at us. I mean, what have we spent our time doing? I think there's a real deep introspection that has to happen here.
Well, and then the other one's a 3 strikes rule in France, and that passing that will become known as Hadapi later. Then there's the recording industry taking down BitTorrent and NZB and basically newsgroup sites.
Okay.
That once again just as relevant in 2014.
Yeah, we just did a newsgroup story, even though newsgroups themselves are kind of dated right now.
Yeah, well, but remember we still they still end up coming up in copyright talks because there's still apparently illegal files being traded on. I have no idea if anything else goes on newsgroups other than piracy right now. I really don't. Then there's this thing about BVG clarifying its stance on the Berlin Trip Planner iPhone app. I don't remember that one at all.
Me
gotta be honest. Then here's one that definitely still remains relevant. Harvard says no to Google's in-copyright book scanning.
Okay.
The Google book search.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely still relevant. In fact, we might
still going on.
Yeah, might still be coming back to that later this episode. Dropping a little hint here. The next one, I'm trying to read what this one was about. The headline wasn't very clarifying.
Skip it then.
Yeah, just basically that was about don't download.
Bad headline. You don't get any exposure.
Download this on the Weird Al Yankovic. Then there was the first person who was ever sued over live casting. Back when that was a thing, when people would go around and broadcast everything in their lives. And they apparently streamed television or something as part of that. The new MPAA copyright enforcers, and finally, rappers suing WWE wrestler John Cena over his entrance music.
Okay.
Was the last article. So yeah, about 3/4 to 4/5 of that very relevant in 2014.
Yeah.
Almost could just repeat those show notes and be completely believable in 2014. It's kind of crazy.
Quick note on Numbly, mentioned it's still around. I don't know how much attention it gets or whose hands it's in, but I checked the WordPress plugin and it's actually maintained. There's a person named Scott Grayban who maintains it. And it was updated on September 4th.
Yeah, they
6 days ago.
Yeah, I know Chris Matthieu told me he had given maintenance of the WordPress plugin over to someone else. Since it was open source, it was no difficulty, and there it went.
Okay.
So yeah, and I do not know if the OS X widget is still maintained, though. That is a much more complicated matter.
Before we go much farther, I did want to mention that in the chat room we have Crystal, who I assume this is Crystal. You're Crystal, yeah, and IP Guy.
Joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for coming to pay a visit and help say goodbye. You've been here though for, like I said, over 200 episodes.
259. That's what I came up with.
What a mistake, right? About 259. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
it's
all blend together at some point.
Incredible length of time to be on a podcast.
It is.
259 episodes. It's an incredible length of time. And,
yeah,
you know, I want to say
one,
personally, I deeply...
Sorry to interrupt. We're getting a delay. Start again.
Go ahead. No, please, go ahead. Go ahead. Your turn.
Okay.
You get to speak. It's your debate, man.
I interrupted. I want to personally say. All I was going to say was that the first show we did was November 10th, 2008, episode 84, and of course this one will come out September 12th, 2014. So I think my tally on that was 5 years, 10 months, and 2 days.
You couldn't just finish the 6 years, couldn't?
No, we thought about that. We almost got there. If it would have gone much longer, I probably would have said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we, and that's one of the things that's coming up is the future of the podcast talk.
Anyway.
But yeah, the thing I just wanted to say was personally, thank you for both your friendship, for doing the show, and for generally just being an awesome all-around guy and a wonderful person to have in my life. I mean, it's without a doubt that most of that's not changing. I know we're still going to be friends, we're still going to hang out, and we're still going to talk. But the Copyright 2.0 show part will be changing. But so thank you for everything, and in particular today, thank you for doing this podcast with me and joining me on it for so long. It has been truly wonderful to have someone as dependable and someone, and that's what I've been learning lately is how difficult it is to find someone to co-host a podcast. You've been truly wonderful through it all, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. And, as I said, just to reiterate what I said 2 episodes ago, I've done the podcast for a long time, and not to say it hasn't been rewarding in any number of ways. We've done a lot of different things, but the greatest thing that I take away from it is my friendship with you. And like you said, that'll continue. And when we started, I said on that show when we started, we weren't really friends. You probably saw my comment on the blog. I kind of backed away from that. I had to walk back from that statement. We were friends, but I think through the podcast we became great friends.
Yeah, we became much closer. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I looked back on this recently.
It wasn't like I just scooped you off the street to do the podcast.
No. Yeah, I mean, you wanted someone who...
You were walking in front of my house when I needed a co-host.
Yeah.
Hey, you, come here.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted someone who couldn't threaten your knowledge of copyright. So you said, I'll take this sucker because he can speak fast and get out of the way, and then I can just go crazy with my knowledge.
Well,
I'll talk about... Okay, go ahead, sorry.
I'll tell you why I actually did. I approached you, and you were actually the first person I approached. You were the very first person I thought of.
It spoiled you, didn't it? The first person you approached said yes.
Yeah, that is very, very lucky. The reason I approached you, the reason I thought of you, is because you were doing such amazing things with your other podcasts that you were doing at that time. You were doing a Site Point podcast, and you had a Managing Communities podcast.
Yeah, I did. That's where
both of which were awesome and wonderful, and yeah.
No, go ahead.
I knew you were knowledgeable about copyright, so I was like, here's a guy who is whiz at podcasting and is really good with copyright. He would be just perfect because I'm basically a moron when it comes to podcasting.
Hopefully I'll still get the chance to, even though I'm not going to be on the show, I'm still copyright minded. I can go to South by Southwest and argue with people about Spotify. Hopefully I still get the chance to do that.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt that.
We can talk about the future of the podcast. We could talk a little bit about the origins of it, the origins of it when I got on. Let's say, just from my perspective, you're talking about the first 83, and because I was kind of thinking about this, because I wrote a post on my personal blog, patrickokeefe.com. It's up there now. It's the latest one. It's called "Leaving the Copyright 2.0 Show." You can't accuse me of clickbaity headlines. It's just the facts. But this is going to be episode 342. Like I said, we did it for 249 times, and you mentioned the Community Admin Show. That was the Managing Communities podcast that I hosted. The Community.
I couldn't remember the name of it. I was going to flub it. Thank you for getting it right.
It was thanks to that show that was the first time we really connected in a meaningful way. I think I found Plagiarism Today in 06, which it didn't start too much earlier, did it?
No, it started August 2005. We just went through our 9-year anniversary.
Yeah, so I think I found it in 06. I don't know how early. Sometime in 06, I was subscribing to it and reading, and I really liked it. I really liked the blog. I thought it was a great resource for people who excuse me, who have trouble with people taking their work and using it without permission. And of course, you cover other news, but that was really the first core thing that really stuck with me, and how you have always been very helpful and giving of your time to people who are dealing with some sort of difficulty related to copyright. And how you do it is really, really great, and really charitable, I would say. And so I came to read your blog and respect your knowledge because of the blog, before we ever kind of first connected. And I think the first contact we had directly might have been when I emailed you. And I have a pretty good email history, especially 07. Going back to 05, 04, 03, I have great email history. And so January 4th, 2007, I emailed you to ask you to be a guest on the Community Men Show. So that's sort of the first time that we connected, and you agreed, and we did it a few days later. We recorded the show. And, I just, as I went through the email history, I was picking up on, what things we talked about way back when, before we started the show. And, something I did then, and I still do now, is I'll see something and I'll tell you about it. So I'll say, back then it was Geely, which, you probably remember, don't you?
I was on what? I think you broke up on me.
Oh, yeah. So the story I brought to you back then was Geely. Do you remember that?
Oh, Geely, yes. I remember the forum scrapers, yes.
Yeah. So they were like a search engine for forums, but they just basically scraped my content and put ads around it.
Vertical for forums is what I believe I called them at the time. I remember my post correctly.
And no one knows what those things are.
No,
we remember.
Those words make no sense to anyone not actually in 2007.
But the simple way to explain it was a search engine for forums, and they had scraped my content from my forums that I manage, and then put ads around it. And so I thought, that's not very good. And so I sent Jonathan an email about it just to tell him. And I didn't ask him to do anything, but then 2 days later he wrote a story about it on his blog. And, that was, I definitely came to respect you that way, because, you are not afraid to call people out and criticize people in a very professional way, though, in a way that's consistent with journalistic standards that you adhere to, given your background and education. So I've always appreciated that, and so when you invited me to join the podcast, I had this great impression of you. And, I saw that what happened was, it was October 2008 when you invited me to do the show, because I had sent you another story idea, and then in response you asked me to co-host.
Yeah, that was pure coincidence, by the way. That timing was just fortuitous.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's, whatever you might believe in or not believe in, there, whatever karmic entity or whatever,
Stars
Star Wars or whatever, from Jesus to Darth Vader, whatever it is you believe in, that moment was fortuitous. And so, I accepted it, and I accepted it kind of quickly. I don't know. It was interesting because I was interested in copyright, but I wasn't an expert. So I like to think what I brought to the show was kind of my savvy outsider perspective, where I can kind of challenge things without knowing what I'm talking about sometimes legally as far as case law and things. So I can just say, well, this is how I think it should be. And I don't have to say, Viacom v. Elmer the Grump, 2007. This case law was set. That I don't worry about that stuff. I just say this is what I think. And I think I've kind of over time developed an ability to draw things out of you and ask the layman questions, even if I already know the answers, just to ask and get those details out. And finally, humor. I think I brought humor to the show. Would you say that those three things are sort of what I brought? Because I mean, I'm not a copyright expert and would never refer to myself as one, so I definitely couldn't bring that.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely brought a lot to the show, and you're more than a lay person on copyright. You work in it, you deal with it every day with your community management. You're above and beyond what I would consider a lay person any day.
I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, and if you want to see what lay person believe, just do a search for copyright on Twitter, and instantly prepare to have your soul crushed. Just be warned, it is the most depressing thing you'll see in a long time.
Yeah, just search for copyrighted patent.
Exactly, copyright and patent on Twitter.
Copyrighted patent or a copyrighted trademark.
Any such search in Twitter is just going to send your faith in humanity way down. But so you definitely are not what I would consider or think of as a layman on copyright. But you not being an expert definitely did help. It did help bring. Like I said, I think you called it that outsider's perspective. It was some of that. But like you said, you knew how to ask the tough questions, and there are some things out there which seem perfectly obvious to people who work day in and day out in copyright, but to someone outside of it, even just a little bit outside, they're like, what, why? And those are tough questions that need answers sometimes. And I've done my best to try to answer them, and not always successfully, I admit. But to me, it's a very interesting. It's been a very interesting dynamic between us, and I've been very grateful for it. And I think it's made this show absolutely wonderful, and some of the 8+ best gigs on copyright you can hope to download. Just upload it to the Pirate Bay when you're done, and
yeah, that's fine. It's all licensed under something, I'm sure. I don't remember signing anything, but I'm sure it's all Creative Commons. No. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it was a good dynamic between the two of us and differing things, and just to I guess touch on why I'm leaving. I'm leaving because I've just kind of been focusing down on what my future is and what I hope to accomplish in the next 10 years, and as part of that, I've said goodbye to a lot of things way before this podcast, like soda tasting, like a number of websites, like other commitments I've been a part of that I've said no to, and I've really cut like 80% of my stuff. And I went down to the wire with the podcast and just kind of thought about it, and really decided that copyright isn't a space I'm going to be working in. Most likely, I've never had a job offer tied to copyright, I just decided that leaving the show. Obviously, I wouldn't be leaving my friendship with Jonathan. I can keep in touch with him in other ways. We can have hangouts and not do a show. So I
intend to secretly record them and post them online. I forgot to warn you about that.
Sure, you could do that. And so I've just came down to saying, what, this 2.0 show, it's not something that fits into my future right now. So
and that's
I'm just focusing on new things, and I'm sorry to go. I'm gonna miss talking to you every week. And once again, the friendship is the greatest thing that I've got from the show. So I look forward to continuing that.
Yeah, we will definitely continue that. I'm not worried there. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we both get our panels picked for South by Southwest.
Right, I hope we do.
And that we both get to meet up there in Austin again. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and finally, thank you to you for inviting me to join the show and for being my friend, and thank you for all your support. Thank you to Chris as well, who launched the show originally, and for his kindness and support. But I appreciate you and him and everyone who has watched the show and supported it by spreading the word or participating in the chat room.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. I agree with that sentiment entirely. That kind of brings us to the future of the Copyright 2.0 show.
Mm-hmm.
And last week I didn't have very good answers for you, and unfortunately I don't have very good answers this week. I'm not going to name names or anything. I'm not going to try to. This isn't me calling anyone out. It's just the people I've been talking to have. And it's a variety of people. I've actually, one person is working on a dissertation on copyright law, going for his doctorate. Another is a legal fellow in Washington. Another is a legal intern, working at a law firm.
I can easily find out who all those people are just by those descriptions. So I'm just kidding.
Maybe, no. But I've got a wide variety of people that I've been talking to, and no one has been able to make what I consider a solid commitment to this show. And that's unfortunate. They all seem everyone seems interested. Everyone wants to do it, but everyone's of course very busy. And that's one of the drawbacks of the people I know is I know a lot of awesome people, but they're all super busy. So what I'm going to do, what the plan right now is, I'm going to put the show on a hiatus for a few weeks. It's probably only going to be for a week or two. That's what I'm hoping. I have it all sorted out in just a week or two. In the meantime, I'm going to be doing YouTube videos by myself. It will not be the Copyright 2.0 show format we have. It'll be something a little bit different, but I will be doing YouTube videos. So stay tuned on Plagiarism Today there. It'll be something different. I haven't come up with a creative name for it yet. I'm working on that part. But there will be something else to fill in the gap. I'm not disappearing from the video, unfortunately, to all those of you who are hoping I would. So I'm going to put the Copyright 2.0 show on hiatus. I'm hoping it'll only be a week or two, but it may be through October, because as you know, I'm running headlong into Halloween. Yep. If I'm not able to get everything square and locked down where I'm able to really just like cruise first or so, then I'm not going to have time to dedicate to rebuilding a show until Halloween comes and goes.
A year.
My most magical time of the year, and I've also got a conference in Memphis I'm doing in the middle of it. I've got a lot of craziness coming up in October, so if I'm not able to get it locked down by October 1st, I'm probably going to go into relative hiding that month, because I usually, on Plagiarism Today, do very limited posting in the month of October. I usually greatly scale back what I post, and I won't have the time to really rebuild, rebrand, and do whatever I need to do for the podcast for a new post. But if I can get things locked down before then, and I'm hoping I will, I will relaunch and just will be cruising through October like nothing changed. So that's the news right now. It's I'm not blaming anyone. There's no fault. There's no disparagement here. It's just it's happened this way. And you know, it's a little bit frustrating for me because you actually told me privately you wanted to exit about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually 2 months. It was actually like 3 weeks ago. I mean, 7 weeks ago, almost dead. We talked about it first. I've been working on it since that day, hoping to nail it down, and it just hasn't come to fruition. I've been working every week on it, talking to people, introducing myself, and it just hasn't come to fruition. So if anyone is interested in being this co-host, let me know. But yeah, it's been a kind of a trying month and a half for me. I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm a little bit strained over it. But like I said, I promised last week I'm going to continue podcasting and continue the Copyright 2.0 show. That is a promise I intend to keep and will keep. It's just going to take longer than I anticipated. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you're having trouble.
It's not your fault, definitely not your fault. You were unbelievably gracious. You, I know, wanted to transition out quicker. Didn't happen, and you stuck around longer. Your sheer kindness and awesomeness to give me time to nail things down. And it's like I said, it's not my fault. It's not anyone's fault. It just hasn't worked. This is, as you know, a pretty significant commitment.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who is thinking about it, I would describe it as, you know, to be fair, significant. It is, but I timed it down to about 3 hours a week. That's how I figured it down for my commitment, which was preparing for the show, which means getting the show notes from you, reading the show, you know, maybe sending you a story once in a long while, and you know, making sure I'm prepared and ready to go about 20 minutes, a half hour early. We record for an hour, I export the audio, I put in the zip file, I upload it, I send you an email. I'll figure, and with promotion on Twitter and Facebook, etc., I time that to be about 3 hours a week, maybe even a little less. Who knows? So it's a commitment because it's every week, 3 hours a week. You know, 52 weeks a year. So you know that's 156 hours, so that's like a week of time. You know, when you really sit down and figure it out. So it's a commitment, but it's definitely doable if you're interested in hosting the show. And I'm glad you're doing videos on YouTube. I think that'll be good. Yeah. You know, to have little bits of content out there, topically relevant to whatever's going on. So yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, what I'll be doing in the meantime won't be as long as the podcast because no one wants to see me jabber for an hour. There's like been a couple of episodes of the Copyright 2.0 show where I tried that and they sucked. I'm not going to put you through an hour of me talking to a screen. It is torture for me and torture for the audience. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's tough to do that well. It's challenging.
It's for that long. It is tough. You know, I mean, I occasionally see like a YouTube video of a guy talking like that. It does it for 20 minutes and keeps it engaging. But yeah, there's definitely a pain threshold there.
Yeah.
So it will not be the same thing. It will not be the same format, but it will be something. And like I said, the Copyright 2.0 show will live on in some format or another. I promise you. I have no intention of leaving podcasting. I love this medium too much to just abandon it. But so yeah, that's the news there. Like I said, there probably will be no show next week. I would be very surprised if there were. And I will be posting on Plagiarism today as things evolve and as things as the situation changes, what I come up with. And I'll let you guys know as soon as possible. Like I said, I'm not disappearing. It's not going away. In fact, I expect I'll have something in the podcast category next week. It just won't be a Copyright 2.0 show. It'll be something. It'll be this newfangled thing.
Cool.
Right?
So we're going to talk about some current stories and then talk about some past stories, right?
Nostalgia. We're going to go down nostalgia road, man. We're going to go tripping through the daisies of copyright love. That was so freaking stupid. Wow.
Yeah, you know what you can do with this show is man on the street. Go on the street and talk to people about copyright.
I should. That would be a lot of fun. And also probably would, once again, make me seriously.
It'd be funny for people who are in copyright.
Yeah, it would be hilarious for people who are in copyright, but for everyone else, it'd be like, what's so dumb about that?
Yeah.
Oh, you silly people on the street. Well, let's go ahead and jump down the parade of stories Patrick will not get to see the end of.
All right.
What we should be making this, because that's pretty much what this entire episode is. But yeah, the first story this week, we have a ruling. We talked last week, I think it was, about the TVI's case. And
We did.
this one really kind of snuck up. I did not see much about the lawsuit. This one, usually there's like a process here. We see the lawsuit being filed. We offer commentary on that. Then there's some like pre-trial stuff going on. And then, we have a hearing, and then there's a ruling, and then, you know what I mean? We have like stuff that happens before we get a ruling. But here, it just kind of, oh yeah, by the way, there was a ruling in this case. It's really important, and you should know about it. But basically, Fox News, cable news company everyone's at least probably somewhat familiar with, filed a lawsuit against the service TVI's. Now, it's TVI's, one word, and the E is capital. Learn that, because otherwise it will trip you up when you write about it later, inevitably. Basically, what TVI's is a media clipping service, and we've seen other services like this. Basically, what it does is it takes all the content, siphons it down, cuts it up, indexes what's being said when, and makes it searchable so that, say, you are in the White House and you want to look up work for the White House and you want to find every mention of President Obama, God help you, then you can do that through a service like this. Or you could find every mention of copyright, or you could find every mention of your company. Press really, a lot of PR firms and internal PR organizations do this. And also, apparently, according to this article by the AP, a lot of other media companies do it. Like MSNBC use it probably to find clips from other their competitors that they can show and maybe lampoon or make fun of them. And also sites that do like media critique, like Media Matters, also use it. Well, a judge has ruled that that key portions, at least, of their service are fair use, namely ruling that the database itself is a fair use, and the ability to search by keyword are a fair use. And that's probably, I would say, the core of the clip business, so to speak, in a way. The ability to find and know what those know what's being said. Now, the judge did say that he needs more evidence on other features of TVIs, including the ability to search by date. And I don't know why search by date would be significant, whatever. And also the feature that allows clips to be archived, downloaded, emailed, and shared via social media. And those clips, according to this article, are up to 10 minutes in length, or up to, apparently it was another article, but up to 10 minutes in length. No, it was this article.
No, it's this article.
And most are under 1 minute. Well,
yeah, 82%. The judge said 82% are a minute or less. So it could be a lot less. And less than 1% are played for the maximum allowable time of 10 minutes. There are a couple interesting points for this here for me. You mentioned the one thing, search function is fair use. There's more to determine. The judge also said, quote, no reasonable juror could find that people are using TVIs as a substitute for watching Fox News broadcasts on television, which is something I said and you said as well last week. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's about more than just television, and the judge also hinted at this, mentioning that subject to the possible exceptions from the downloading and sharing of clips via social media, I find that the smallest possible market harm to Fox News is substantially outweighed by the important public benefit provided by TVIs, end quote. So I think there might, in the end, be issues with TVIs, and I think those issues are anything that faces to the public, especially anything like if you can share a clip via social media and anyone can view it, then that's problematic, because obviously TV networks make available clips of news stories on their websites, which they
and that, I would say, is a significantly larger part of their business model. I mean, one thing the judge hit on was that Fox News made extraordinarily little money on clip licensing and so forth.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely a potential issue, especially when they do make the clips available on their website, and if they don't have the clips, then it becomes less of an issue. But yeah, I think there's a little bit more to find out here. But it's interesting to get a feeling on this, because we discussed how they don't license from Fox News while they do license from others, and how that could present an issue. But apparently the judge didn't feel that way.
Yeah, the judge didn't feel that way. And like I said, the two elements the judge ruled on, the database and the ability to search by keyword, I think are the two things that are pretty much at the core of any clipping service. Yeah. Most of these companies, like the White House, for example, isn't necessarily using it.
White House Inc.
The White House Incorporated. Organizations, like they mentioned the White House here, that's why I keep throwing them out. Yeah. They're not using it to fill their social media profiles. They're using it to get a grasp of what the media is saying about them. And those features are what relate directly to that.
Yeah,
So,
no mention in this article of the supposed live streaming that was
I was
mentioned in the
about to
article
get
we talked about last week. So I don't know if that was just that article exaggerating or what's going on here.
No, that is interesting that you mentioned that because I noticed that too, and I actually read about a dozen articles on this exact, on this exact ruling, and none of them mentioned it. So it didn't come up good, bad, or otherwise.
So maybe, I mean, maybe it just wasn't. I don't know. Maybe there's not something there because it didn't seem right in the original story. To be honest with you, the first story from last week, it seemed weird that a clipping service would do that because it's kind of not what clipping services do. Clipping services, they index that content. They watch it so you don't have to.
Basically that's something like we want Fox News so you don't have to. It's the whole sales pitch.
Yeah, I mean, or anything else.
Or
depending
anything
on
else.
Whatever way you lean, they essentially say, we're going to watch this TV, we're going to clip it up, and we're going to type out all the keywords, all the companies named, all the themes, everything, that then you can then search and index it so that people can know when they're mentioned in the news or when a particular theme or topic is. So it doesn't really make sense for clipping service to offer live current streaming of what's on television right now, because if they want that, they can just flip on a TV.
Yeah, and like you said, at $500 per month, it's not exactly an effective replacement for your cable box. Just throwing that out.
No, it doesn't compete with Aereo.
It doesn't. Oh God, give me one of those podcasts. I see. Okay, this new lawsuit actually really fascinated me when I saw the headline. Getty Images is suing Microsoft, and it's not. And at first, when I first saw the headline, I thought it had something to do with like software, or maybe Microsoft used it in a brochure or something, used Getty Images photos in a brochure. No, it's actually over a new Bing feature called Bing Image Wallet. And basically what this is, and I don't know if I really...
Bing Image
Widget, sorry, I don't know why I said wallet.
It's on the mind. That's a big business right now, the whole pay thing. Apple Pay is coming out, Amazon is their pay thing. Yeah, it's on the brain.
Apple Pay is on the brain, man. You know, and but Bing Image Wallet was basically a. You see what you got me doing, Patrick?
I didn't do it.
You did it to me, and
you did it first. Okay.
Bing Image Widget is basically a little embeddable code. At least it was. It was taken down 2 days ago, by the way. But it's a little embeddable widget you can stick in a site, and it will display images from the Bing image search engine that are relevant to the keywords you tell it. So if you write a blog post about volcanoes, and you wish to have a little image gallery or a slider there on your site, you can just put these widgets in with the keyword volcanoes and go. Now, Getty sued saying that, hey, you're pulling down our copyrighted photos and displaying it on third-party sites without our permission. That's a copyright infringement.
Yeah, and I keep my widgets in my wallet. I don't know about you, but yeah. No. So here's the thing. Here's an easy way to think about this. Google image search, embed the results. So that's essentially maybe more communicative.
Embed it into a pretty gallery or a slider. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I found one example of this because someone had taken a screenshot and not just embedded it, because as you noted, it's been taken down. It's no longer offered as a feature. It was basically like, so I forget what the search was, but it was like, I think it was like chocolate or brownies or something. But it was like a bunch of images tiled, and at the bottom it said a little gray bar with Bing on it. So the images weren't hosted on their site. The images were definitely embedded in a widget, as you described. And I don't know if the widget was Flash-based or how it worked, or was HTML5 or whatever. I mean, you would assume Flash, but sometimes it might be other things.
Well, then again, it's Microsoft. It's probably Silverlight, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. But, yeah, it's interesting to see them go this route. I think Microsoft may be willing to push Bing a little farther than Google is with their search, since Microsoft is trailing Google by such massive market share. They have less to lose. But it's hard to... image search as a whole, I think you probably agree with this, exists very tenuously, no matter what search engine it's on. The feature itself exists very tenuously because it only displays images. It takes the images. You can click on the image on Google Image Search, for example, and view a larger version without ever going to the website it's on, without ever seeing any kind of credit, without ever seeing. So the existence of image search is, some would say, the bane of many photographers and people who monetize images online. And to allow people to embed those images in any fashion is then pushing that envelope even a little further. And I think this lawsuit was pretty predictable, and I think Microsoft sort of indicates that in their response. You know, when a lot of people respond to lawsuits, are like their claims are without merit.
We're going to take them out. We're going to beat them down.
Yeah, not this time. Not this time. They don't say their claims are without merit. They say we'll take a look at their concerns. We're going to take we're definitely going to take a look at their concerns. You know, there might be something here we should adjust. And they took the feature offline. They didn't wait to let the lawsuit play out. They simply took it offline. So I think that speaks to the fact that Microsoft's attorneys see this as
at least
not a good issue for them.
Not being, you know,
very defensible.
Yeah, they at least don't see it as being completely bright line. You know.
Yeah.
They don't see themselves on the right, clearly on the right side at the very least. They think that at least there's enough here to warrant taking precautionary measures. But yeah, they did take it down. It is offline. And, you know, think about image searches. Ever since the Perfect 10v Google ruling, which, you know, ruled that the concept of image search is legal, the use of thumbnails and so forth, and it's very similar to what was going on with TV eyes, that idea that as long as you're indexing and making searchable, doing something transformative, it's okay. But ever since then, you know, we've seen companies, Google and Microsoft, kind of push the boundaries of what is acceptable.
Yeah.
Because they feel very protected by that Perfect 10v Google. And here's a case where I think a search engine definitely overstepped the boundaries of what was allowed in that case, especially to go by taking it that next step and making it embeddable on third-party sites.
Yeah.
That's a leap too far, because as Getty pointed out, that's exactly our business, you jerk. Is making images available to be embedded in third-party sites. That's what we do. That is literally our exact business model.
Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate it. Sorry to interrupt. Crystal said I have to sign off. Best of luck, Patrick. I know you'll be great in whatever you pursue. Thanks, Crystal. Anyway, appreciate that. And yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, I think you said it all, and we can move on.
Yeah. So let's talk about Deadmau5 or Deadmau5 5. I never really. It's Deadmau5. I know. I'm just being stupid. Yeah, there's a very interesting.
The rap battles teach you nothing.
Epic rap battle of history: Deadmau5 versus Mickey Mouse.
I forgot the whole line, but it's oh, I know what it was. It was the one Skrillex. He says
Skrillex and
versus Mozart. Mozart says he reeks of dead mouse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's
anyway, Deadmau5 versus Mickey Mouse.
Deadmau5 versus Mickey Mouse. There's been something of a tiff here between the land of Disney and the land of dubstep. Because Deadmau5 apparently recently, even though he's used the mask, the iconic mask, and the look and the name for some time, he only recently got around to applying for a trademark, for a formal trademark registration.
In the U.S.
In the U.S. Disney has filed an opposition to that, saying that it is confusingly similar to their Mickey Mouse mark, and they are wanting it stricken down. Well, Deadmau5, and that's a trademark issue. Now, Deadmau5 has responded to this, saying that Disney did not get his permission to use his music in a short film that's posted on their site. And he has written them a cease and desist asking them to take it down, basically, where that one stands. Yeah.
What I find funny here is that Zimmerman, that's Deadmau5's real name, Joel Zimmerman, he says, he's quoted as saying, "We just hit them back pretty hard. They've been infringing on my rights the whole time," end quote. So here's the thing. Disney can throw you a few pennies, okay, for this video, which was an online video, 90 seconds of his music apparently to do some sort of mashup with Mickey Mouse animation, all Mickey Mouse animation. And it was online. They didn't sell it. They didn't put it in a movie. I mean, so whatever damages that amounts to, if we play it out all the way exponentially, is a few pennies for Mickey Mouse Inc. It's not hitting them very hard. It's not as big an issue as the Mickey Mouse trademark. I think he's making a big to-do out of that, and I'm going to continue into the trademark because I'm not, I might not just go all pro Disney on this one. I'm just saying this particular issue is silly, and I think he's playing it out like you might expect. Though he's playing it as the sort of hero and then David and Goliath, which, to be fair, he is David, and they are Goliath, and I think he's getting the sympathy and the support that I think you could reasonably expect in such a case.
And Disney in this case, I don't think is as bad of a bad guy as people are making them out to be. Because he's saying that Disney waited 10 years to oppose his trademark. Well, he only recently filed it. You know, it's not like they had an opportunity
Yeah,
to
I mean, he means that they never had a problem with him using the mouse head.
Yeah, and
previously. They never contacted him about it.
And that's probably very true. But here's
Right.
the thing. When you for formal trademark registration, it goes that next step.
Right.
Now, here's the thing about trademark. If you don't defend a trademark, you can effectively lose it. And
Right.
so what likely is going on is that Disney is opposing it, not expecting to win it, but just wanting to prove that they are actively defending it and engaging on it. They probably have no real interest if they win or lose this trademark battle. It's not really the issue. But they need to be able to show that they've been actively defending and actively engaging in it in order to keep that mark and mean it. So, you know, it's a situation where, yeah, Disney might be seen as kind of a jerk, but it's kind of also what they have to do to defend, as you put, that very valuable trademark.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good point. I hadn't really even thought of that. That a loss is actually a value to Disney, because otherwise, I'm not really sure how to feel about this particular case. You know, part of me feels like it's ears on a mouse, and you know, I don't know. But other part of me feels like if you line it up, I could see Disney's perspective that maybe there would be something, some thought, some confusion like that's a deranged Mickey Mouse to be something. In other words, the dead mouse logo, not the head thing, but if you get the logo, Google the logo, look at the image search,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and compare that to kind of the black and white Mickey logo, and you know, there's some similarity. I'm not saying it's protectable. I'm saying that it's reasonable to think that some people might look at that and say, oh, look, that's, like I said, a deranged Mickey Mouse or a crazy Mickey Mouse or a really happy Mickey Mouse. And I don't know how to feel about it. It might be unique enough. It might. I don't feel either way particularly strongly. But I think you make an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that. That simply defending it, even if they lose, is still of value to Disney.
Yeah, it's still at least of some value to Disney. Like I said, they need to prove that they're continuing to enforce and trade and basically defend that mark, and that's part of what's going on here. It's not necessarily, like I said, Disney trying to crush dead mouse here. It's Disney doing what Disney as a responsible trademark owner has to do. It's just unpleasant in this case.
Zimmerman claims to own the mark in 30 other countries. Any thoughts on why Disney hadn't contested it elsewhere?
No idea on that one, and a lot of it could be trademark in those other countries might not have made it, you know, relevant to do so.
Okay, yeah, that seems interesting. I know. I mean, obviously,
I know even less about trademark in other countries than I know about trademark here.
Yeah.
So I'm like really screwed if we get into that conversation. But yeah, my understanding is trademark does work very differently in other countries, so there might not have been a need to, or might not have been appropriate to.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you say something that's true that I think he also glosses over, which I think the masses will accept because they don't understand the technicalities of trademark, let's say. But you know, until he filed it, it wasn't really much of an issue because Disney didn't want to come across as heavy-handed and shut down this artist necessarily. Just like we see them give other things a pass, as they should really in many cases, because there's a risk-reward to enforcing different marks, and you have to consider what the real value is of it. So we've seen, like, I don't want to say that Dead Mouse is as bad an example to Disney as, say, that movie that was shot in the park.
Yeah, the Terror in Tomorrowland, whatever it was.
Yeah, Terror in Tomorrowland. So, you know, could Disney have enforced some things on that? Possibly, yes. Most likely, yes.
But it would have been stupid.
Why would they do that? The benefits of it don't outweigh the downside of it, and they rightly and smartly just ignored it and had no statement. So I think
and the movie died on the vine as the result. But
and when he, you know, and when he filed a trademark, like you said, it becomes official. There's paperwork on it. There's legal issues at play, and you know, Disney had an issue with it. Do I think he's going to have to stop using his mouse head? I don't know. I don't think so, honestly. But
I honestly don't think so.
But we'll see. I mean, you'll see. I don't care anymore. After I hang up, I don't give a damn. So
you're never going to think about copyright or trademark again.
I'm on a permanent copyright vacation.
He's checking out of copyright forever.
I'm gonna go after this. I'm not paying for music ever again. I'm done.
Straight to Pirate Bay, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Copyright no longer exists in my world. Okay.
I'm downloading all the things, right?
Yeah. I've already got it. I've already got it queued up. I'm just waiting to hit the button as soon as our bandwidth is available here. I can't suck down the bandwidth for the video. It'd look all even more blurry.
Well. Moving to the next story, we're talking about the Blurred Lines lawsuit. Now, remember that the estate from Marvin Gaye threatened Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams and everyone else involved with the song Blurred Lines, saying that Blurred Lines was an infringement on Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up. Now, Thicke and Company actually did like a preemptive lawsuit, and now there's been a counter lawsuit by the Gay estates, and now we've got like back and forth here on this mess. But long and short of it is, Thicke and his the team Thicke recently filed a motion for summary judgment saying, hey, look, there's not enough similarity between these songs, not even a couple of notes, it's nothing here. Basically, the Gay estate just smelled money, started targeting, shaking us down, and we had to sue them to make them shut up. And now the Gay estate has hit back with a mashup version that they claim proves it's a derivative work, and also statements from several two expert musicologists that say there are 8 key similarities between the songs, including the signature phrase in the main vocal melodies, the hooks with backup vocals, one core theme in Blurred Lines, and a backup hook of Got to Give It Up, the backup hooks, the bass melodies, the keyboard parts, and the unusual percussion choices. 8 kind of makes me go, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, and then the Gay estate also says that examples of prior art that the Thicke team provided are irrelevant. Those songs are not similar enough, according to the Gay estate. So they are keen to hit back and keep this lawsuit from being dismissed.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of forget my exact phrase when we talked about this early on. I mean, I see some things, but I don't know if there's enough there to make this a case. I think is what I felt way back when, because I listened to both songs. You can pull it on Spotify, anyone can. And the mashup idea they talk about in this article, where they took the vocals from both songs and laid them over the instrumentals of the song. So, for example, they put Thicke's song over the backing music for Gay's song, and vice versa. So Gay's singing over Blurred Lines, and he's singing over, Thicke is singing over Gotta Give It Up. To me, that I don't know. It seems gimmicky to me. It doesn't, because I think you can do a lot of things. You can take a lot of vocals, a lot of acapellas, and lay them over instrumentals. And if it matches the beat pattern, then it matches. I don't know what is necessarily. I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's kind of a trick in a way to kind of illustrate the issue. But to me, it's just kind of gimmicky. Mashups themselves, lots of good. If you view a mashup as an artistry, which I think there are really great mashups out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And great mashup artists don't just take any vocal and then stretch it over any instrumental or any other song. A lot of the great mashup artists take an instrumental that matches a vocal, 2 different genres, 2 different songs, and then mix those together because they match up so well. And I think this might be a case where you could put these vocals over any number of songs. So that just seems kind of gimmicky to me. And the thought that I think using Thicke and Pharrell Williams' kind of statements against them in a way of how Thicke said that "Got to Give It Up" is one of his favorite songs of all time, and Pharrell said that he envisioned himself as Marvin Gaye while making the song. I mean, I envision myself as Puff Daddy while managing communities. That doesn't mean that that Sean Combs has any claim over what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like they're using their praise of Gaye against them. And I don't know what to make of this whole thing. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. But I'm not really convinced by these particular arguments.
And I always find the remix argument to be kind of a bad one for me personally. Because have you heard of the band called Beatallica?
No, but I can guess what they might be.
They are a mashup band that combines Beatles and Metallica.
Oh, okay. I might not have guessed that. I probably would have guessed a cover band. Okay.
No, but they're a mashup band. They do something like one of their album titles. I'm actually on their Wikipedia right now, refreshing myself. When their first album was A Garage Days Night. A play on A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles and Garage Days by Metallica, 2 albums. And so they do these mashups, and they sound very convincing. You could believe, if you wanted to, that Metallica was a ripoff of the Beatles, or vice versa, if you had a time machine. But, of course, those are 2 very, very different bands with very different styles and very different sounds, and it's just a very well-done mashup, So this whole idea of a mashup being evidence is interesting. I'm more interested in this expert witness testimony that, unfortunately, nothing goes into too much depth in, and a lot of the information, as Eric Gardner points out, is redacted right now. But that, to me, might be, depending upon what the experts actually say and their qualifications and whatnot, might be the most convincing part.
Yeah, and if anyone's looking for Beatallica, the spelling is Beatallica.
Yeah.
So beat, as in music beat, or the first 4 letters of Beatles, and then Tallica.
Yeah.
First I typed in the letter B, then Tallica, then Beatallica. Then I finally got to Beatallica.
Beatallica, B-A-Tallica. Yes, thank you.
Like B author, author Tallica.
Yeah, there you go. That would be an interesting band too.
Yeah.
Well, Jay-Z, we talked earlier about the Jay-Z's lawsuit against his I'm assuming former sound engineer. I don't think they're going to continue working together after this. But his former sound engineer filed a lawsuit saying that he is co-author, or joint author rather, of 45 different Jay-Z songs. Chelsea Mayhen's the guy's name, and that includes many of Jay-Z's biggest songs like Big Pimpin' and Things That You Do. Basically, he claims that he made significant contributions to those songs, and therefore he deserves to be treated as a joint author. Jay-Z finally has I shouldn't say finally, he responded to it timely. It just feels like forever, but he responded to the lawsuit saying that A, there was no intent in between the two of us to create a work of joint authorship, which is a requirement of a work of joint authorship. B, this lawsuit was not filed timely, and C, what the hell, we gave all the rights to Universal, we're not a party in this anyway. So, yeah, basically doing everything they can to get this lawsuit dismissed. As you might expect.
Yeah, that's
and some pretty compelling arguments there, I've got to admit. Because they are right that you do have to have an expressed intent to make a work of joint authorship to make a work of joint authorship.
Okay.
That is true. You have to have some kind of intent. Like, you and I cannot make a work of joint authorship just by you taking something I wrote and adding to it. You know, you would control your portions that you would add, but that doesn't necessarily make it a work of joint authorship. We have to start from the outset, before the creation, with the intention. So, just interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't have too much to say about it.
It's a valid point, and I think it's got a pretty good shot at making the case. Stepping in back to New Zealand, entering the international portion of our show, Kim.com again. This story generated one of the worst headlines I have ever seen in copyright news history, by the way. I'm not going to call it the site, but one site actually tagged this exact story with the headline, Kim.com to get all mega upload data back. No, that's not what's happening. Mm-hmm. Shut up. you nimwit. That data's gone. It was destroyed. The data warehouses in the U.S. and Netherlands where it was housed destroyed the data because they weren't having their hosting bills paid. They couldn't store petabytes of data forever at no cost. You know, no, it's gone. Forget it. No, but what actually did happen is Kim.com is getting data, his personal data back, and clones of it included. Basically, when his house was raided in January 2012, police took servers, computers, flash drives, stuff from his home as part of their investigation, and some of it was copied as part of that investigation, and allegedly some of the unencrypted stuff found its way into hands of the U.S. authorities who are pursuing an extradition case against him. But yeah, so Kim.com is now, the police are now ordered to return all that data, including the clones, to him as soon as practical.
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much says it. I mean,
and the other interesting side note deals with encrypted data. There was some data that they couldn't access because it was encrypted, and Kim.com is being ordered to hand over his encryption keys, but it'll be handed over to one of two police officers who have been designated for this task, who will not be able to share those passwords with anyone, in particular, especially, double cross your heart, we swear, U.S. authorities. So yeah.
Yeah, the story mentions that the seizure of electronic items, including laptops, computers, portable hard drives, flash storage drives, and servers, was unauthorized, and further it upheld the High Court declaration that the fact, like you kind of mentioned, the decision to allow police to give cloned copies of the information to the FBI without direction from the Solicitor General wasn't authorized. It was unlawful. So, I think we've talked about those issues before. Because the investigation hasn't in itself been completely clean, which is problematic, I think, in any case.
It hasn't been as dirty as some people have made it out to be, but there have definitely been problems with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual raid itself was ruled to be legal, but yeah, as you pointed out, the seizure of the personal data on computers, was ruled to be unlawful. And that's interesting that this discussion comes up in New Zealand because we just had a Supreme Court case here about police thumbing through cell phones and laptops and computers and so forth. So, surprisingly relevant to the U.S. too.
Yeah.
And finally, the last news story you will cover on the Copyright 2.0 show. It's not a joke. The EU court defines parody. Now, remember that the EU, as part of its copyright changes, indicated that parody might be protected, would be strongly protected under fair dealing in the country, but there was no clear definition as to what parody is. Not that there is one in the U.S., actually. We don't really seem to know here either. But the EU, the European Court of Justice, has set down from on high a definition of parody. It says, the only and essential characteristics of parody are, on the one hand, to evoke an existing work while being noticeably different from it, and on the other, to constitute an expression of humor or mockery. Parody does not need to display an original character of its own, other than displaying noticeable differences with respect to the original work parodied. In the same way, it is not necessarily that it could be attributed to a person other than the author of the original work itself, or that it should relate to the original work itself or mention the source work being parodied, which is interesting because in the United States, we draw kind of a distinction between parody and just generally, using something to make humor. Parody is usually in the United States considered to be making fun of that thing itself. If you're making fun of the song itself, that is a parody. But if you're using that song to make fun, to lampoon something outside of it, that is something totally different. It's still likely protected by fair use, but it's a slightly different case study. So yeah, and also they make a note that it doesn't have to even really be funny, which is good because humor is very subjective, and that would be kind of brutal to say that if your joke falls flat, it's a copyright infringement. But if it succeeds, well, good for you.
Yeah, you have to measure the laughter.
Yeah, you have to have the laugh-o-meter in the court when the parody is displayed.
Yeah. The meaning of the jury takes on a whole new thing when they have to write the laughter. Oh well, the jury has ruled that was not a funny joke.
That was not funny. I am sorry. It is an infringement now that you have lost.
I mean, imagine how the jury pool selection would go if they wanted people who were easy to laugh,
Tell me, sir, do you watch 2.5 Men? Okay.
I don't watch that show, so I just.
I don't watch it either. But what kind of sitcoms do you commonly view on television?
Yeah, you gotta play maybe a selection of jokes. That's all. Play a selection of jokes. So bring up. What about what there has to? And here's another thing.
We're gonna show you a series of memes. Do any of these elicit humor from you?
What if the before the the proceedings begin, they have to bring in a war up act?
That could be interesting. Yeah. Well, that is it for our copyright news. But before you go, we both wanted to quickly look at what we have seen as the top copyright stories, or at least some of the top copyright stories. It was really difficult to pick them all out. We had I was easily able to find 12, but we tried to narrow it down to 10. You want to tear through them real fast?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, well, the first one I pulled, one we alluded to in the beginning, was the Google Book Search versus the Authors Guild case, and it should also include the Publishers Guild there as well. Generally, Google Book Search, period, is where I should have just left that. But yeah, Google Book Search, controversial book scanning project, has scanned and made indexable millions of books, including many that are in copyright. Authors Guild and the Publishers Guild sued. But originally, it seemed like everything was going to end all hunky-dory because the three sides reached an agreement, and everything seemed to be going great. And then the judge threw out the first and the second attempts at a settlement, kicking it back to the court. The Publishers Guild did actually make a settlement that stuck, but the Authors Guild kind of couldn't reach it and has recently suffered several major setbacks in court, with courts agreeing with Google that Google Book Search is a fair use.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands to me is they just got greedy, and I've said that a few times here. But the way they were having all works opted into it, orphan works, other works, people who they don't represent works, just a general vague opt into Google Book Search. They could have had a settlement. I don't know if Google would have gone without that stuff, but they might have, just to get it off the books and get it done with. And they got a little too presumptuous. So.
Well, they obviously wouldn't have been too opposed to it. They did one with the Publishers Guild.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like they were, no settlement for you just based upon your work, which is what the Publishers Guild did. So, it's an interesting case study, and we're seeing it even this week. I mean, the TVI's case, remember, TVI's likened itself to Google Book Search.
Yeah.
So we are to video what Google Book Search is to books. That was their pitch for legality. And apparently for TVI's, it seems to have at least worked to some degree.
Yeah, I don't know how many authors the Authors Guild represents versus how many publishers the Publishers Guild represents.
Yeah, percentage-wise would be interesting. I suspect the Publishers Guild represents a significantly higher percentage of published books than the Authors Guild does.
I would say so. That's kind of what I was hinting at. Because my book's been in Google Book Search for a very long time. It's even sold by Google on Google Play. So there you go.
There you go. So yeah, number 2, the SOPA and PIPA controversies / protests / legislation pieces. Wow, was that was a thing? That was January 2012. It was actually, remember, the SOPA and PIPA protest went down the day before the Kim.com arrest. Spoiler alert. So yeah, but it was a very interesting time to be talking about copyright that month.
Yeah, I would say that. That might be, during the show's run, it might be, if it's at least one of the, if not the most mainstream copyright moments.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say that copyright issue reached more general people who don't otherwise care about copyright or whose lives are otherwise not affected by copyright in a way they know, because we're all affected by copyright, but like it's not in their daily stream copyright. It was in their daily stream. It wasn't everyone's daily stream.
Yeah. You know, and when the Daily Show is talking about it, that's how you know it's reached that point. You know, when Jon Stewart on the Daily Show is talking about SOPA and PIPA, you know that we've hit that mainstream moment there.
Yeah.
And you know, it was interesting. I said at the time, and I'll say it again now. I wasn't necessarily pro SOPA or PIPA. I kind of had mixed feelings about the laws. I wasn't like thrilled or excited by them, but I also wasn't like, you know. I didn't think the sky was falling either. You know, what SOPA and PIPA were proposing has been done in other countries without drastic negative consequences. And that was my problem. It wasn't necessarily that SOPA and PIPA were defeated, but that basically, you know, the way it was defeated, the hyperbolic nature of the debate, how off the rails it went, it really... It really upset me a little bit. Not like I said that SOPA and PIPA lost, just how hyperbolic it got. It wasn't a matter of people becoming aware of copyright issues. It seemed to me it was like people were getting these buzzwords and these, you know, these ideas of what the law was about that were not wholly accurate and running with it from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that element was disappointing. And like I said, the day after, our third story, mega upload, shuttered. Kim.com arrested, still facing extradition, I might add. Still haven't gotten around to that one. February 2015. Maybe I'll have you back for one episode so you can kind of tidy that one up whenever.
Yeah, you know, maybe we should make a note of those long-running cases. I should come back to finish up.
Yeah, this might be one of them because, yeah, it's been ongoing since January 2012. Mega Upload, as we both know, was raided and shuttered by a joint action. New Zealand police raided Kim.com's mansion and also arrested other actual employees of Mega Upload. U.S. authorities shuttered the site, and also the Dutch servers were taken offline too. At that time, sites on the internet, according to Kim.com, responsible for something like 9% of all traffic online.
Yeah, so pretty crazy.
It was crazy. It was shut down, and we've been arguing about it ever since, basically, is the crux of it.
Yeah.
and I had to lump a lot into number 4, but it was basically Right Haven, Prindle Law, Malibu Media, U.S. Copyright Group, copyright, quote-unquote, trolling in general.
Yeah.
The big push by a lot of companies to basically find ways to extract money from BitTorrent file sharers and other types of copyright infringements that might be relatively minor, but using the high cost of the court system to extract quick and easy settlements.
Yeah, Right Haven was one of the ones that most of the copyright trolls tend to be porn trolls. Would that be fair to say? But Right Haven
I would say they have I don't know if they're most, but they have a disproportionate percentage for certain.
Yeah. But Right Haven, I think, it was the one that was going after newspaper articles more, right?
Yes, they were going. The Las Vegas Review-Journal was their primary paper.
So, I mean, I think they made for some of the more unique drama in the history of the show. Things we've talked about, stories we've talked about, between aliases, false names, signed over companies, and Prindle Law especially, and how they kind of played the shell game. I think maybe one of the more dramatic stories in the history of the show.
Yeah, definitely. Prindle was definitely been one of that moment where the real person who was the signatory. Remember that the person who allegedly owned the company was
like the groundskeeper or something, or the gardener or whatever.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was
that was a true soap opera moment in copyright history. There, it's like you could almost hear the dun dun dun.
Yeah, that was a moment.
That was one of the more interesting, and definitely one of the more memorable moments we had on the Copyright 2.0 show, I would say. But yeah, Right Haven. I also remember with Right Haven the moment they lost the copyright to articles they didn't actually supposedly own. That whole weird thing.
Yep, that's right.
They were forced to, as part of a payment when they lost a judgment, they were forced to pay by signing over copyrights to articles that they claimed they didn't actually hold, but had apparently been signed over to them so they could do the enforcement. So yeah, they basically lost the right to other people's content.
And at one point, weren't like either handing over the domain name to their website or selling it to raise the funds to pay their damages?
They were forced to,
Yeah.
They were forced to by the
They lost
executive.
their proverbial online home.
Yes, they did. And by the way, their home now is one of those free speech hosting companies.
Okay.
What's
the website?
Righthaven.com.
Okay.
It has not been updated in over 2 years, so don't expect much excitement when you go there. But righthaven.com is still a thing. And apparently they still do that laissez-faire free speech hosting type thing going on. So that's what to expect there. Next up is the Aereo ruling. Now, Aereo was interesting because we actually did kind of get to see this one all the way through. And it was weird because it started really, really fast. I think this broke like a speed record for first lawsuit to Supreme Court ruling. It was like a year tops. It was very quick.
It was.
I mean, basically, Aereo TV streaming service worked by setting it up in a town. These tiny little antennas, one per customer. They capture the over-air signal and beam it to people's via the internet. They also had DVR functionality. And they were sued. Broadcasters sued them. And not only did broadcasters sue them, there was their competitor, Aereo Killer, that then became Film On. Because, Aereo Killer, we had a lot of fun with that name.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one part of the story is the whole thing with Aereo Killer, which obviously is a problematic name, and the sort of Aki David, is that correct?
Aki David, yeah, Aki
David. In his efforts to be competitive and be seen as a legitimate competitor, but really, no, not really a legitimate competitor. I think it's two separate, different. It's completely different business, two different companies. It's like comparing Magic Kingdom to Six Flags New England. I mean, it's and I can say that because I went to Six Flags New England. There's nothing against them; they're fine, but it's not Magic Kingdom, okay? You're not the same. But yeah, that was one of the weird things about the story was the name Aereo Killer and sort of how they continued to lose while
Aereo Killer / Film On lost.
While Aereo won. And I still maintain that Aereo was a novel concept, an interesting idea of how they did the antennas, an interesting way of trying to be within the law. and I think a worthwhile service that and the market's out there. And I don't know if the cable companies are going to fill that gap because there's probably not enough money in it for them to offer a low-cost service for local channels only. But no, I wouldn't be surprised if we revisit this 10, 15 years from now and bundling is a lot different. Maybe it won't be. Who knows? But I hope Aereo is allowed to eventually exist in some way, and that they open up that compulsory licensing to internet companies as well, so they can innovate around that.
And that's kind of where the case sits. Aereo, like you said, won constantly. Aereo was on a winning streak until the very end. It lost some district court rulings toward the end, but for most of its life, it won at the appellate court. The case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically shot him down stone cold 6-3.
Right.
And said that they were behaving like a cable company that was an unlicensed cable company. Well, then Aereo took that ball and is running with it now, saying, hey, if we're like a cable company, let's have some of that statutory licensing action.
Yeah.
And just license this stuff. And so far, that hasn't worked out too well. Another ruling prior to Aereo, IVTV, ruled that internet cable companies do not qualify for Section 111, which is the area of the copyright law where that statutory licensing comes from, did not qualify for that.
Right.
So Aereo's got an uphill battle there. They're also looking at the possibility of ditching the live portion and just doing DVR functionality.
Yeah.
The next one is copyright termination in general. This one has been a broad battle over copyright termination, which is a rule which basically says that content creators, if they license or even license or transfer their license or copyright to someone, they can sort of go back on it and unwind it after a certain number of years. It's a long time, but a lot of stuff from the like the 70s and even before have come up for copyright termination recently, especially in music. And the whole battle, especially in the music industry, has been what is a work for hire? Works for hire do not qualify for copyright termination. But works created as an independent contractor do. So that whole divide has been what's been fascinating there, both in music and comic books.
Yeah, I think you mentioned I was just going to ask that because it seems like the overwhelming number of cases are music, and then there's a good portion that are comic books, and it doesn't seem like this is affecting other creative works all that much.
I think a lot of that has to do with the way those industries are structured, because I think it's pretty clear most movies are works for hire. They're large projects paid for and funded from on high, where you can argue that yes, a record label fronts money, but that money is a loan. It's not. They sometimes bill it as a loan. It's not necessarily, it's not necessarily money that they are being paid for production of that album.
Right.
There's different structures here. In the comic industry, while now I think it's very different and more work for hire-y, back in the old days, a lot of people were just paid when they came in with a comic book people wanted to publish.
Yeah, IP Guy says he likes using the word recapture, as in recapture copyright.
That's a good one. I would say we'll use that from now on, but there really isn't much from now on for us. So I promise for the duration of this podcast to use the word recapture. That is much better. I agree. And our final one is the RIAA lawsuits, which actually began before you took on the show, but of course we talked about Jamie Thomas Rassett and Joel Tenenbaum a great deal, both who have lost their cases at all levels and were stuck with some very, very high damage awards at the end of the day.
Yeah. The thing that stands out to me about these cases, or especially in Thomas Rassett's case, is just the steadfast unwillingness to settle. Yeah. And I don't even know what the current status of that is. What is that over?
Yeah,
I forget. It's been so long.
By the Supreme Court, she's done. I mean, my knowledge.
So what does that mean? The last ruling stands? What was it?
Yeah, basically,
it was millions of dollars, right?
Yeah. I can't remember what the last one was, but it was at least hundreds of thousands. Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at it. Reinstated the award of, I think it might have been $220,000.
Yeah, that was in hundreds of thousands. I think that was the millions one. It was the last one. It was the first one that got reinstated by the appeals court.
Okay. I'm looking. Yeah, because I'm looking at. Because I'm looking at the. Gosh, how many times am I going to say looking at? But I'm looking at the Wikipedia page here for Capitol Records Inc.
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's a very good summary of where it came from, and I think if you follow the numbers here, it says the following: after declining a settlement offer of $5,000, the defendant was found liable in 2007. In order to pay $222,000. she wanted a new trial, and she got one because of an error to jury instructions. Then the second trial in 2009, she declined a $25,000 settlement offer. And again, the jury found her liable, this time for $1.92 million in damages. Yeah. And that sum was reduced to $54,000. The record labels this time refused to accept that reduced amount, so a third trial went, and this time she lost again and was ordered by the jury to pay $1.5 million. The court again reduced it to $54,000. The record labels, of course, again appealed, and in 2012, September 11th, oddly enough, this is going to be 2 years ago tomorrow, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed that decision to reduce the award and reinstated the initial $222,000.
All the way back to the beginning.
It's like you know, if you could sum it up in 5 words, it's this is the legal system. This is the way it works. You know, we don't want to accept this, so we fight this, and we get this, and then we fight again, we get this, and it goes back to the beginning anyway.
Yeah, and basically, we have 5 years of work there that was for nothing. Between October 4th, 2007, when that first ruling came down, and the appeal court decision on September 11th, 2012, all that, everything that happened between then, those 2 rulings and everything, the 2 other rulings, the reductions, everything was for nothing. You know, it went nowhere. And
I think that I think she's a frustrating character.
Yeah.
Because as I said probably far too many times, she lost out on being the sympathetic character. Unfortunately, she had it in being a mom, and in in a household with people living in it beyond herself. But then over time, she did things that made you question her character. And
she tried to blame her kids. She lied, tried to destroy evidence, things like that. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so
nothing big.
She lost that, and then when you get over the fact that she knew she did something wrong, is what the end result was more or less, and she got offered a $5,000 settlement, and she fought it, and then she got the $220,000 damage award. She got offered another low settlement, $25,000. She refused to take it. She kept fighting. I guess with other people's money. You know, there were attorneys out there that were willing to represent her for the press, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, just a frustrating case. And if anything dates this case, it's the fact that this was a 24-song case. It was based on 24 songs. You know how they narrow it down. The most recent song, according to Wikipedia, that was pirated was 2001's "Hella Good" by No Doubt. So that song is 13 years old. And IP guy asked, "Didn't she lie?" Oh yeah, we covered that. Yeah, she did lie. Yep, we're just catching up to the stream. Yeah, she lied.
Yeah, she lied. And here's what's interesting. I'm looking at the settlement offers that you were just talking about. The latest one I'm seeing was in 2009, after the court reduced the damages to $54,000. Remember, the court now has reduced it to $54,000.
Okay. Yeah, this one was left out, I guess.
The plaintiffs then proposed a $25,000 settlement, going even below that, and she declined the settlement.
Yeah, okay.
Even though she's already got a $54,000 judgment.
Yeah, and so, yep, and Tenenbaum was I would say a little less memorable. I know you like Charlie Nesson a lot, but that was kind of
he was fun.
The main thing on that, and that one went out with less of a bang at the end of the day. Thomas Rasmussen one had way more bangs.
Yeah, at the end of the day, both of them ended up getting their petitions to the Supreme Court denied, and are left with the damage awards that they were hit with at the beginning. So they lost basically, and it's like you said, that tenacity to not settle really did neither of them any favors at the end of the day. And I'm trying to see how much Joel Tenenbaum was hit.
Yeah, and here's a statement by Mike Masnick at TechDirt, who obviously we talked about on the show and has a certain viewpoint regarding copyright. But headline a story he wrote in 2013: Joel Tenenbaum loses again. Bad cases with lying defendants make for bad law.
Which is true.
Hard to disagree with that.
Yeah, he was hit with a full original judgment value, $675,000, so even higher than Thomas Rasmussen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Before we... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So it's just interesting to see these 2 cases play out, and everyone was cheering for them and expecting them to beat the system, and it didn't happen at all.
Nope, the system beat them, I guess. Well, those are the 7 stories. I did want to mention one other highlight, which I think would probably be a highlight for you, was the episode we did about global grunt.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a very good episode.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons it's so memorable is because, well, one of us was involved in it, me,
Yeah,
but also I think it was the most no, it was the most active, engaged chat room of any episode we've ever had, far and away.
absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, there were tons of people in the chat
The
room. It
only
was
time
active.
with it would be the episode we did after both Sopa and Pippa and Mega Upload. That was a pretty hot chat that day too.
Okay, yeah, I don't even remember those, but I'll take your word for it.
Right, I think
But
Global
yeah, I mean,
Grind
the
was
Global
the
Grind
hottest.
episode was a great episode because I kind of experienced it firsthand, and it was, it's I guess briefly the way to describe it is Global Grind was sort of a news aggregator of sorts, and so they had some controversy when they put, and this is gonna, everyone watching this now probably doesn't even remember the dig bar, but they had their own top bar on the top of the website. They were framing content, but more importantly, they were scraping content from my website and submitting it to Google News. So they were able to list in Google News. They were putting my content in Google News that was on their website, and so didn't like the response I got. Wrote a post about it. Jonathan wrote a post about it. We did a show about it. All these different bloggers and writers came up and said, yeah, they've been doing that with my content too. Yeah, I didn't know I could do anything about that, et cetera, et cetera. So we had this really great show. And it was a lot of fun. So I think that is one of my highlights, one of my favorite shows.
That was really good. I think the best part about it wasn't just doing the show, but was the outcome of the whole thing. It was that it had a real, tangible out. You and me talking about it and doing the show, it actually did have a real impact.
Yeah, they stopped the practice shortly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think there were several, and you've done this countless times over. You've stopped a lot of things like that numerous times, and you've helped a lot of bloggers, and I think that was yet another example of it. A lot of people who wrote about content online had a better understanding of their rights, and at the end of the day, Global Grind stopped.
Yeah, and it's like we talked about earlier with Omegle, and I referred to them as the Biticle for forums, because Biticle was doing something very similar to Omegle, scraping blogs and republishing them on their site, but it was doing it to doing the blogs and not forums. But the times we've done it together, both Omegle and with Global Grind, those were the times I definitely remember the best and the most fondly, because I have no problem going to war by myself, but it's always a lot more fun and a lot more comforting to do it with someone awesome like Patrick O'Keefe by your side.
Yeah, I understand that, and I feel the same way. Yep. Good times.
Good times, kicking some butt. That's what we do. And we will continue to kick butt. We just won't be doing it together on this podcast. We'll be doing it behind the scenes like ninjas. That's right, we're becoming copyright ninjas after this. He's not going to pirate.
Yeah, I'm quitting to go on the copyright underground.
he's going off the grid, man.
I'm going to go undercover. I'm going to go into the actual pirate bay in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, clever.
No.
Well, no, Patrick, I am out of copyright news and out of our top stories. For real quick, for those who are playing along at home, the other stories I had looked at were the Sherlock Holmes / Happy Birthday public domain battles, and also the 6 strike / copyright alert system in the U.S. were two other big ones I mentioned.
And another one that reminded, gosh, nice use of words, Patrick. Maybe you should retire from podcasting. Another one, thanks, IP guy. And the other thing that came to mind for me was the Shepard Fairey case, just because it seemed to go on for a while because of the direct issue with Fairey, and AP, but also then the photographer brought additional drama to it with him. There was some question at one point whether the AP owned the photo or he owned the photo or what he was working as or whatever. And at the end of the day, Fairey, damaged himself, much like Thomas Rassett, and ended up losing the case. I think like Masnick said it well, actually, is bad line defendants make bad laws. I think Fairey was another line defendant that brought evidence and ended up losing.
Some defendants shoot themselves in the foot. He pretty much blew his whole foot off by tampering with evidence, and that sank his case. He had nothing. He settled quickly after that. And AP ended up beating the attorney, Garcia, I think his name was.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. Annie Garcia, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Manny Garcia, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, it was Garcia.
That's useful knowledge. I'm sure I'll get a job off that.
Well, if Jeopardy ever comes calling, Patrick, you know which categories to choose now.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, Patrick, it has been truly wonderful having you these past 259 episodes. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your humor, and thank you for all that you brought to this show. It has been truly a wonderful ride. I've cherished and appreciated every minute I've got to spend with you doing this podcast, and I'm looking forward to many other minutes with you doing different things than the podcast.
Thanks, man. It's been a fun ride.
It's been a fun ride. Well, let's wrap it up then. My name is Jonathan Bailey. I am from the site Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com, if you couldn't tell by the repeating of Plagiarism Today. And also, speaking of repeating Plagiarism Today, you can find me at LinkedIn, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, all the places as, guess what, Plagiarism Today. I'm very creative with my naming scheme.
And I'm Patrick O'Keefe. I blog at managingcommunities.com and patrickokeefe.com. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn as Patrick O'Keefe, PatrickOkeefe. And if you want, email me, patrick@ifroggy.com.
You know, I've always said if ever we wanted to change subject, we should just change this to the Irish podcast with Bailey and O'Keefe and see where it goes. But still, it's been a great time with you, man. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys very soon.